move this one. Yeah, Ruby 3.1 on Rails 7. Yeah, at this picture, you can see that like whole development of languages, evolution of languages from hex to Ruby. First of all, it was a hex. It was operated by some hex numbers commons. Then it was assembler, which just operates some like registers and moving commons. Then it was C, Fortran, C++, Java, and Ruby. Yeah, you can see this like scale of degradation. Yeah, that's really funny, but it's a kind of true because yeah, in Ruby it's a really high level language. You don't care regarding registers and some other stuff. Okay, our meetup plan is we will speak regarding Ruby and Rails. First of all, Ruby short generation history, prerequisites for Ruby 3.1, YJIT, debug gem, error highlight, IRB autocomplete, docs display, language new features, RBS, TypeProf performance improvements, other notable changes. And what's regarding Rails, we will speak about Node and Webpack are not required. Oh my God, Turbolinks and UJS replaced by Turboand stimulus, encryption at database layer, Asynchronous Querying, Zeitwerk mode for Rails 7, retry jobs unlimited times, named variables, hash to HTML attributes, assert a single record with soul, check presence, absence of an association, Steam generated files from controller actions, upgrading to Rails 7, and after that it will be questions and be drinking, guys. So I really ask you, just let your head down and just chill and get fun. Okay, third generation history. You can see that, yeah, we started from Ruby 2.4 and finished with Ruby 3. What was the main issue why Mats decided to implement Ruby 3? It was a performance, because if we compare Ruby 3 with, or Ruby, 2, 1 versions with other applications, with other web frameworks, with other languages, we will see that, for example, scalability of applications required much memory than, for example, .NET or JVM. Yeah, because it's considered that they are better platforms for building applications that require calculations and concurrency. And that's why one of major focuses for Ruby 3 was the performance. And at Ruby 3, just if we look at a opti-caret frames, we will see that, okay, it became 3 times faster than it was. And like, it's why Ruby 3 called 3x3, because it's considered that it's faster 3 times than it was previously. But we'll see, is it truth or not? Let's start from a main topic. What is JIT? Because it's one of the main reasons why Ruby 3 became faster in 3 times. A language with JIT is the hybrid of compiled and interpreted languages. It begins by running interpreter, but then notices which pieces of your program are called many times. Then it compiles just the specific parts, and in order to optimize them. If you look at this diagram, especially MRI, JRuby plus Truffle, you will see that implementation with Truffle Ruby with JIT can run a particular CPU-heavy benchmark at 900% the speed of a standard C Ruby. Yeah, it's really true. That's a kind of main advantage of JIT, because it's really easy to measure the performance benefits of using JIT via opti-caret frames or any other benchmarks. The main idea, if you have used a particular method many times, you will probably use it again many times. So it was the time and trouble to compile that method. How is it possible? YJIT language avoids a slow compilation step, just like interpreted languages do, but they eventually get the faster performance for the parts of your program that are used the most, like a compiled language. As a result, if we look at this benchmark and see that one part is on the left, it's MJT, which has been introduced in Ruby 2.7, and the right part, Ruby 3 JT, we can see that we have more VPS. Yeah, Ruby JT is the fastest JT ever for MRI. However, despite Ruby 3's big improvement in reducing iCache misses, it's still not ready for optimizing Rail application. Yes, and we will go here. Yeah, Rails cannot use MJT with Ruby 3 or JT with Ruby 3. Why? Because Rails can use MJT with Ruby 3.1. And it was the main focus of Ruby 3.1 to improve this feature, to allow a real business applications use JT in reality. Because we just checked some OptiK frames and benchmarks, but I mean, the main focus is to improve Rails performance, not like desktop, some scripts and applications. And we are going to see pre-requirements for Ruby 3.1. Yeah, Ruby 3 is still not perfect. The debugger helplessness buyback, I guess it's kind of not really useful. IRB is still a piece of shit. Some language things to be improved are still present. Attempts to make RBS and TypeProf more popular by updating their possibilities. Okay, if we look at YJIT, what is YJIT? It's a new attempt to improve MJT and JT. It's a kind of a project of Shopify. And as I said, it was not possible to use MJT and JT with Rails. But Shopify tried to achieve that. And yeah, the goal was speed ups on real world software, not just synthetic benchmarks, web workloads in particular, I mean, Rails applications. Yeah, C Ruby code base is very complex, build a JT inside the interpreter. It was a main goal, and incremental gradually add more functionality. And if we look at benefits of Shopify's approach, we will see drop in replacement, easier to stay up to date and highly underrated. The main concept of new YJT, it's a lazy basic block versioning. It's based on two statements. The first is version of basic blocks. It means accumulate and propagate type information. Specialized basic blocks based on context. Selective tail duplication unfold the control flow graph. Creating multiple versions of code is not the objective. And the second statement is lazy code generation. We can generate code only when needed, truly just in time. Capture type information as late as possible. Lazy tail duplication, lazy evaluation for code. Yeah, and if we look at this diagram, YJT results in comparison with no-JT, MJT, we will see that, for example, for active record, it's faster, for mail, it's faster, and for Rails bench, also faster. But an interesting fact, if we look at the MJT for active record, it's slower than using no-JT. That's why I guess the Shopify made a really brilliant feature and a really brilliant update and merged this into Ruby 3.1. But to be really honest, it's still kind of experimental feature because after some tests on real Rails applications, Shopify team decided that it still needs to be developed and to be fixed in some places, because sometimes when you don't expect, your application can be crashed if you use YJIT. Yeah, that's why for now it's kind of still yeah, not really ready feature, experimental, I guess. But if you want to try, you can use it with your like some work applications or with your just own applications, and see and check, is it really faster or not. Okay, RB and debug gem. Yeah, the main feature was to implement a new debug gem, improves the debugging performance. It doesn't slow down the application even with the debugger, support remote debugging, support rich debugging front end, support multi-process, multi-thread debugging, colorful REPL, and other useful features like record reply feature, tracing feature, and so on. Yeah, below you can see some comments, but I guess they're similar to payback or binding pry. Yeah, one more new feature. Let's try to see a new IRB common tabs. Let's try to implement some demi class. I don't know, maybe a letter multiplier, for example. And as you can see, if I try to write some comments, it gives me some like variants. If I try to get, for example, comparable, it also gives me a new variant. For initialize, I can also do that. If I try to, for example, implement initialize method, it's a bit gives me some variants how to do that. Okay, and for example, let's implement this new method. If I want to use debug gem, I can just write debugger here and say, okay, self new, for example, self class count +1. Okay, and if we want to compare things, I guess we need this method. Okay, and we can just say compare with other.count. Okay, and that's probably it. Yeah, if we try to instantiate the first variable, like new, for example, 3, 1, or w, and if I try to call suck method, yeah, it doesn't work because we need to require debug gem. Okay, now we kind of debug things, and if we want to get some information regarding our current state, we can just type info and see that we have self, count, and letter. If we want to evaluate some things, we can just write p and I don't know, next. It tries to get a next local variable, but it doesn't exist. If we put p count, we will get our instance variable. We put p puts count, we will print 1. Yeah, I guess it's clear. Other comments, you know, it's next and step. They are pretty obvious. And for example, we can also see our trace call. Enable call tracer allows us to call some methods. For example, again, I can call letter, for example. Yeah, and now we can see, okay, yeah, letter. letter. It's an instance variable, but we can call count, for example. Yeah, and now we can see that we have our trace here, and we can like look at things and where they coming from, and yeah, debug our code. Yeah, that's probably it. Yeah, to continue program, we can just write C. It's kind of continue, and it will continue a program. Okay, let's continue. RBS. RBS is language to describe the structure of Ruby programs. We can see some new updates. Generic type parameters can be bound. Generic type aliases are supported. Many signature for built-in and standard libraries have been added, updated. It includes many bug fixes and performance improvements too. I won't say that I use RBS really often because in our business applications, on our projects, we just don't care about it. We don't care about types. We don't care about checking types and like throw some things or exceptions. But like Ruby 3 and Ruby 3.1 tries to make it more popular, but to be really honest, it's not a thing to discuss, to be discussed, yeah. One more thing, it's TypeProf. The static type analyzer for Ruby. It generates a prototype of RBS from non-type annotated Ruby code. Yeah, and the main update here is a new extension in Visual Studio Code. Shows a guessed method signature above each method definition. Yeah, maybe I will show some things. I just created some dummy Rails application, and we have services. We have some classes here like animal, badger, and honey. If I try to, for example, let's try to use RBS. To do that, we need to yeah, include a gem and run bundle install. I guess it's obvious. And for example, if we want to get a signature of a particular class, we can just run RBS prototype, yeah, prototype and RB, and we can like, if we want to get an animal signature, we can, yeah, run this, and we will see that, yeah, it's kind of representation of animal initialize. It's untyped because Ruby doesn't understand that we pass a weight as a like integer or string. Yeah, initialize doesn't return anything. That's why it's void. And for example, die, it's also untyped age. But the main difference between TypeProf and RBS, it's just for your understanding, that RBS can guess types. How? Because RBS checks this execution, because here on line 7, we execute this we call this class and execute this. And as you can see, we can kind of call yeah, TypeProf here. And now our types are guessed. Weight, it's integer, and yeah, age, it's also integer. And this returns Boolean because TypeProf checks that this has been executed, and now types are obvious. Okay, let's continue. Other notable changes since 3.1, I mean in Ruby since 3.0, now in Ruby 3.1, it's a line pattern matching. As you can see, if we have a hash with some keys and values, we can use rocket symbol, as I call it, rocket symbol, to move some things into variable name, and after that we can put this name variable and see our new result. It's John because yeah, it's matched in a hash that we have on the left side. Okay, cool. And the second thing is multiple assignment evaluation order has been changed slightly. What does it mean? If we look at the foo at 0, bar at 0 equal to best and quicks, In Ruby 3.0, it's just executed from right to left. First of all, base, quicks, foo, and then bear. In Ruby 3.1, it's evaluated in order from the left to the right. Yeah, like foo, bear, and then base, and then quicks. Okay. Rails improvements. Yeah, this is the most important change of all time. Yeah, people became different. They have different skin. Yeah, we have some like limited people. We don't have, I guess, dog anymore. I don't know why. Yeah. Okay. The main update of Rails 7 front end. This is regarding JavaScript. Yeah, JavaScript in Rails 7 will no longer require Node.js or Webpack. There is no transpiling between what you write and what the browser gets. Yeah, I mean, from a box, you don't use any like ESBuild, rollup, Webpack, and Node things. If you want, for example, to use React with JS6, we will have to fall back to different setup. For example, we will need to run bin Rails JavaScript install, ESBuild, or rollup, or Webpack. Yeah, and also, as obvious, it will not be possible to use TypeScript or JS6. They require transpilation to JS before use. Yeah. If we need to use TypeScript, as I said, we will have to run Rails JavaScript install and choose our Webpack or rollup or ESBuild. Turbolinks and QGIS replaced by Turbo and Simulus. That's really cool because now we have a new library. It's Hotwire, and it's an alternative approach to building modern web applications without using much JavaScript by sending HTML instead of JSON over the wire. And all applications, all Rails 7 applications, by default, get Turbo and Simulus from Hotwire. And if we look at Turbo, it's a set of complementary techniques for speeding up page changes and form submissions, dividing complex pages into components and stream partial pages updated our WebSockets. You can imagine that we have kind of piece of HTML, and if we are going to update this piece of HTML, it will be updated through WebSockets. As I guess it's a really cool feature. Yeah, because it allows us to not care about like this JS stuff understand or by jQuery update some HTML pieces. We can just use Turbo of Hotwire, and some our HTML pieces will be just replaced automatically through WebSockets. Stimulus and Strada. Yeah, I guess you already know what is Stimulus. You can read more information regarding Strada and see on the website of Hotwire these three things. I guess they are really helpful and can be used in a new approach of Rails 7. Yeah, let's continue. Encryption and database lawyer. Rails 7 allows marking certain database fields as encrypted using encrypts. And it means that we just have a model. Look at this message model, and we can just put encrypts any field. But yeah, before this, we need to perform some setup like Rails DB encryption init to get some like encryption information, primary key, deterministic key, and key derivation salt. Yeah, and let's have a look maybe more deeply. We have a user model, and we want to encrypt some things. As I described, first of all, we have to initialize our DB encryption, Rails DB encryption, initialize Yeah, we can. Okay, yeah. Okay, init. That's true. Yeah, now we have some active record encryption parameters like primary key, determination key, key duration solved. We can just run. We can just try to update our credentials. Yeah, let's run this one, bean rails credentials edit. Yeah, and again, we can generate new keys and parameters, and we can just pass them here. Okay, save. And now if we go into use encryption, we just can specify encrypt password and deterministic option or not. The main difference between them, yeah, let's try to run our demo application, and I will show you the difference. Okay, this is our user page code, and now I'm going to create a new user. For example, test one with password YJIT1234. Okay, it has been created. If I run Rails cell, and I'm going to query user find by password and QWERTY password. I cannot do that because we don't have. Yeah, let's. Okay, yeah, let's do it one more time. Back to all users. Yeah, I do have this user. Okay, let's try to query it by first name. Do we have such user? Let's check. Okay, inspect. Okay, we cannot do that because that's deterministic. Yeah, we have this option. Deterministic. If we want to query a user by this field, we have to remove this deterministic option, and then it will work, I guess. Yeah. Yeah, let's try to do it one more time with invoices, for example. If I want to create a new invoice, name 123, for example, with user 4, we can now try to call it invoice find by name. Yeah, it works because we have a non-deterministic approach for invoices. Yeah, let's continue. As I explained, we can use probably different techniques. How can we encrypt our files, I mean our attributes? Two options: derived secret key provider and service encryption and decryption keys derived from provided passwords using some algorithm, and envelope encryption key provider uses a random secret to encrypt the plain text. In our, for example, development RB, or in our production RB, we can just set it by config active record encryption key provider and set needed class here. And the main thing we can use multiple primary keys. If we use multiple primary keys, this is the last one will be used for encryption and decryption, and the previous will be always used for decryption only. Okay. The next thing is synchronous querying. It's a really cool feature. If we look at this index, method, you can see that we have some really complex scope here for our users, apps, and invoices. And we use load async. What is load async? I guess it's a definitely new approach how we can asynchronously query into database. How to use that? Yeah, first of all, we need to set up a async query executor in our config file, development, production, etc. We have two options, global thread pool and multi-thread pool. First of all, global thread pool will use a single pool for all databases application connects to. This is a preferred configuration for applications with only a single database or application which only ever query one database shared at a time. And multi-thread pool will use one pool per database. And each pool size can be configured individually at database YAML. Yes, let's have a look into our user model. And we have user controller, and here we have index action. And let's try to query users page and see in our console what's going on. Yes, now it's marked as async. You can see this. And that's really interesting. It means that all of these 5 queries, they performed at the same time. How is it possible? Yeah, I guess if we look at our presentation, let's have a look into steps. If we have a particular HTML page where we try to show users, then apps and invoices, when Rails starts to interpret this page, and when we faced with users, it will automatically try to convert to array. For example, if we have it in a loop, and this causes the query to execute synchronously, meaning that first of all, we query for users, then after that we query for apps, we query for invoices, and etc. If we try to change this and call to it just a little bit speed up the process, we will do it from the start. We just will not wait when Rails start to renders an index page, but it will also be one by one. First of all, users, then apps and invoices. Then if we look into load async, you can see that all these 3 queries, they are performed simultaneously, and it really works. I mean, if we have 3 queries and each query takes 1 second, performing with load async will take 1 second. If we don't use load async in such case, it will take 3 seconds, like one by one, 3 seconds in general, yeah. Yeah, if we look at this load async, we can see that, okay, maybe we can perform it also. Yeah, let's try to optimize user's query. And yeah, if we optimized user's query, we now see that apps, it's so long, it's still long. If, for example, we reduced users to be not a 1 second, but to be, I don't know, 0.2 seconds or 2 milliseconds, something like that. Anyway, we will have to wait for 1 second because we have for apps and apps, it takes to be loaded for 1 second. It means that we will always rely on the longest query from all our queries. If we have apps, for example, invoices and users, and invoices is take to 3 or 5 seconds to be loaded, it will be 3 or 5 seconds, even if we optimized users and yeah, apps. That's it. With some config active record global executor concurrency, we can set up a maximum of queries that can be run simultaneously. By default, it's only 4. If we have more than 4 requests, we will, yeah, the new one will be performed one by one, like we had before adding loaders in. Okay, other notable changes, Zeitwerk mode for Rails 7. Yeah, the classic autoloader has been extremely useful, but it has another some amount of issues. And Zeitwerk was developed to address this among other motivations. And now in Rails 7, we only have a Zeitwerk mode option. We don't have a classic option for that. Yeah, and it's not only possible to use classic option. Yeah, anyway. Named variants. Now we have yeah, named variants. If you look at this class user, if we attached avatar to user and we created a variant, for example, sum with some resize, we now can just say, okay, image tag user dot avatar dot variant and specify sum. We don't need to specify yeah, size of this variant, but I guess this option was available previously, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, we could do that previously as well. But yeah, for some reason, Rails team just decided to yeah, remind us. Yeah, hash to HTML attributes. Now we can just specify input, for example, tag.attributes, and pass a type, area, label, class, and other HTML attributes that we used previously, and it will produce like just a usual input type text. Okay. Assert a single record with soul. Now we can just query a single record, for example. Let's try it with our user. For example, user soul will return an error because we have multiple users. We have 2 users. If I just remove the last user, okay, and now try to run this query. Yeah, it works. Now it works, I guess. Yeah, we don't have this error anymore. Yes, let's continue. We have one more approach to check presence absence of an association. For example, if we wanted to query account user joins contact, we just want to get contact users where not contact ID is nil. We just only want to be sure that we get all users where we have associated contact. We can just run run this where associated contact. Yeah, I also have invoice model. If I want to get all invoices where associated user, where is not user a nil, I can just run this query and get the same result. All these invoices have user. Okay, let's continue. Yeah, active job infinite retries live demo. Yeah, that's a really new concept of how we can retry our jobs. If we look at our example dummy job, for example, super custom exception we have, and in our job, it can be raised this exception. We can retry on this exception and specify attempts unlimited. It means if I like try to run this job now, okay. No, it's an exception. Yeah, it's, I guess, so late for me. Okay, performing dummy job. Now we have an exception, and I guess it should start again. Let's try to, yeah, let's try to reload Rails application and see how it works. Definitely. Okay, yeah. Let's see. Done job perform. Okay, now we have this demo job, and as you can see, it started to be performed unlimited times. Each time it sleeps and raises these super custom exceptions, and now it retries unlimited times. To be really honest, I'm not sure how it can be used. I don't think, are there any situations where we have to retry some things unlimited times? Maybe, yeah, I will be really careful with this new feature. I don't think it's a good idea to retry things unlimited times, but now we have such possibility. I don't know, maybe in some cases where you try to reach another microservice and for some time it's not available. Yeah, it's been fixed, or I don't know, maintained or updated, and you have some stuff on your application which is depend on stuff from another microservice. In this situation, maybe using attempts unlimited can be a solution, but you have to be really sure that the team of another microservice will fix it. It will work again. Okay, okay, let's continue. Yeah, the new feature is stream generated files from controller actions. You can now use send stream inside the controller actions to start streaming a file that is being generated on the fly. As you can see from this syntax, we have send stream file name. We specify some file, and then in our subscribers, we can just find each subscriber and just write it to a stream. And this provides an immediate partial response to the user, so they know something is happening, and has added benefit if you deploy on Heroku, for example. Since the file will start streaming immediately, Heroku will not terminate the connection. This means you don't need to resort to background jobs to generate one-off files that take longer than 30 seconds. I guess it's really a cool feature from the perspective that sometimes we really, yeah, put some stuff into background jobs to generate some files and return to users. But now we can just use send stream. Yeah, I guess we will be able to try it out. Yeah, and the last step is upgrading to Rails 7. I guess it's really easy to upgrade to Rails 7. Yeah, the main things you have pay attention on, I guess it's Zeitwerk mode. Maybe it will also require to update some gems. Yeah, we can, by default, this YJIT doesn't work, but you can just try to, I don't know, if you have some home applications, you can try to use this YJIT with your applications and look at the results and benchmarks and see how it works. Yes, that's probably it. Yeah. Questions? Are there any questions, guys? Beer drinking? Maybe you have some of them. Do you have any questions? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sergey. Maybe you have a question.
First of all, I want to thank you for work. You had a good job. It was very interesting, and I'm not really understood the point about async queries and what increasing of performance we will get if for example, I rewrote all my queries in application.
Yeah. In this case, as I described, we look at this example, maybe user controller. For example, we try to load for 5 instance variables: users, apps, invoices, network accounts, and tags. And each of them take 1 second. Okay. It means that as a result, you will have to wait 5 seconds because you have five queries here. But now, if we use load async, it will take only 1 second because all of these queries will be performed at the same time. I guess this is the main difference. Have you understood it or not?
Yeah, but I just switched my mind when you described it. That's why I asked it one more time. So the amount of queries depends on our setup connection pool.
Yes, sure. For example, but yeah, as I described, by default, it's only possible to have simultaneously performed four queries, but we have a special, in our development RB, we have a special config. We can specify, for example, config active record global executor concurrency 5, and it will be possible to run simultaneously five queries, and they will be performed at the same time. Yeah, for example, if you have five queries and the first query takes 2 seconds and other 4 queries take each 1 second, you will have to wait for 2 seconds because it always depends on a bigger query execution time. Yeah, because I mean, here in our index action, yeah, I guess this all stuff depends on each other because we are going to show it on our page. So anyway, like we'll take minimum 2 seconds because we have the bigger query. 2 seconds.
Yes, thanks. I think it's a great feature.
Yeah, we can definitely. It's really helpful when you have like multiple requests, multiple queries, and they use really difficult scopes. For example, let's imagine that you have scope which contains on lots of scopes, or 10 scopes, or 7 scopes, or 8 scopes. You have some joins, you have some like SQL queries, plain, I don't know, and you can just now try to apply the load async and see how it will increase your time of execution. Yeah, I mean, it depends on your database, especially this option, global executor concurrency. By default, it's 4. I guess the reason is not each database can cope with lots of queries that I high loaded, and it requires some memory from database perspective. I mean, operation memory, but you can set this option after some tries, yes, or attempts, and see what's best option for you. That's it.
Thank you. It's clear.
Yeah, I will also share with this presentation. Yeah, yeah, as you can see here, it's, I guess, obvious how it's performed one by one without load async and simultaneously with load async. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, I have a small question regarding async queries also. So do you know what will happen if we will use the result of one of async queries in another async query? Will it break the query, or will it wait until the first query will be?
It will wait until the first query will be performed.
Okay, nice. Thank you.
Yeah, it's you know, it's automatically yeah, it's automatically resolved by Rails, because when you write your whole long query and you assign it to some instance variable, first of all, Rails will not go into execute it. Yes, it tries to analyze your query. Yes, and after that, if you run load async, it will just put it into like a pool, and in some time after execution, your action method, for example, when Rails put it all instance variables and it checks that, okay, one of instance variable depends on other, it will only execute the other, yes, and after that it will paste a result of the other to the first one. Yeah, because Rails can resolve this all things before starting querying. I guess that's really cool feature. Yeah.
Yeah, really cool. Thank you.
I mean, I'm not sure we have already started to use it in our project, but maybe in some places we can create some PRs and see how it works and does it bring any benefit or not. Or yeah, I guess especially in situations where we have multiple queries and multiple scopes at the same time, I guess it's really helpful. Yeah. Okay, are there any other questions?
Could someone share experience with the upgrading from Ruby 2.7 or 2.8 to 3.1? How it's complicated, and what should I expect, and what the problems could I face?
The main problem I remember was connected with open method. Yeah, because I guess in Ruby, if I'm not mistaken, in Ruby 3.0, it has been deprecated. Yes, and now we have to replace all callings like file.open and some URL with URI.open and some URL. What's regarding other updates or other concerns? Maybe Sergey, do you remember? Are there any concerns with upgrading of Ruby?
No, unfortunately, I did not upgrade this yet,
Okay.
and I cannot say anything.
Because I can't imagine, is it a really big deal, or like it's slightly fixes, and that's it.
I guess the main problem from the start was connected with some gems, because some gems they were not up to date with Ruby 3, and that's why yeah, it was not possible to use some libraries. I did it, I guess, several months ago, but yeah, I was working on some like small project, and it wasn't a really big problem for us to upgrade to Ruby 3. Yeah, but only gems, they were not up to date with Ruby 3. But now I guess it's not a problem because it has compatibility with previous versions. I mean, everything which is not deprecated should work there. Yeah, you can try and ask some questions in our Anderson Ruby chat and or share with your results. But now I don't really remember any difficult problems with that.
Yeah, and what about
maybe okay, yeah.
And what about Rails updating from, or it's a bad idea?
Rails, okay, yeah. I don't see any problems with updating of Rails. Only you have to be careful with Zeitwerk option mode, because as I described now, if we look into this feature, previously some Rails applications, they used classic autoloader. And if you write, I don't know, some stuff that relies on some autoloading processes, or you have some pre-autoloader classes or libraries or etc., I guess it will be really cool, first of all, to deploy it in some sandbox and see how it works, because it's maybe only one really place where we have to be careful, because all other things they work with Rails 7. Yeah, I guess always the main problem is to update dependencies, because yeah, dependencies, they cannot be always up to date. I don't know, maybe if you use some gems like for MongoDB or for yeah, Faraday stuff, like I used Faraday gem, and I do remember that it was a problem with Faraday to be updated to Ruby 3, and yeah, you have to be careful with dependencies, first of all. But
Thank
now,
you.
yeah, it depends on the project. If you if you just created a sandbox dummy Rails applications locally, you can just easily upgrade to Rails 7 and nothing will be broken, right? But if you just have a like enterprise application or some customer project, I guess, yeah, you can face with some problems like, yeah, upgrading dependencies.
Thank you. Now
Okay.
I don't feel so scared.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Okay, Alexei.
Yeah, I have one. Thank you for the presentation. Well, I actually wondering about this credentials feature. Does it mean that now we don't even need another games to perform encryption? For example, previously we was using bcrypt gem. Does it mean that now it's useless? Or maybe this new feature does something absolutely different to bcrypt?
I only want to say that now we can, yeah, Rails allows us to do it from sandbox. And the main thing we have to remember that we have two approaches, non-deterministic and deterministic approach. And non-deterministic approach is more like more safe if we compare it with deterministic. But with deterministic approach, we can perform find by. For example, if we have encrypt text and deterministic true, we can find by this text. And I guess this will not be such safe, but we can like easily switch between these two options. I'm not sure. Do you know in your gems that you have mentioned, does it have such possibilities to switch between encryption technique? Because yeah, I mean, the same plain text will generate a different cipher each time if we have non-deterministic approach. Like, and it makes this approach to be really safe and yeah, can help us from attackers, but we will not be able to find by this attribute. But we can like switch between these two approaches, depend on our business logic. Do you remember in your gem, is it possible to use this or not?
I think bcrypt always works like non-deterministically. It's actually it's a pretty popular gem. Bcrypt. Oh, okay, thanks.
But if we use bdecrypt, can we search by these attributes? If we have like encrypted text, can we search by an encrypted text or not? Do you know?
No, I think we can't.
We can't. Yeah. I mean, here we can do that, but set deterministic approach and will not be such safe. Like, yeah, because like this technology it automatically encrypt and decrypt encrypted and decrypted attribute between the database and your application. And like if attacker wants to know what key do you use, which key do you use, he can like catch your query between database and application. And if we use deterministic approach and you have several queries, I guess there are any mechanism how you can like decrypt it, or find what is a key. With deterministic approach, I guess it's possible. Yeah, if you have multiple variants and encryptions, that's probably it. Yeah, I do think that it's not such bad to use this approach in comparison with bdecrypt. We can just try it, but I think it's really cool that we can use deterministic or non-deterministic approach and combine them and see what should be used depending on our business logic. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have other questions? As I remember, somebody raised a hand. Okay, Alexei.
Yeah, at first, thank you for your nice speech and this big presentation that you made. But I wanted to ask you to elaborate more in depth on JIT, MJIT, and YJIT things. Like, what's the difference between all of them? And is YJIT now default in Ruby 3.1, or are we still able to use MJIT and simple JIT with Ruby 3.1?
Yeah. Now by default in Ruby 3.1, we have MJIT by default, which is, as you remember, first of all, we had JIT. After that, in Ruby 2.7, we have MJIT. In Ruby 3, we have improved JIT again, and now we have YJIT. By default, Ruby 3.1, as I remember, doesn't use anything like, because it's still like experimental feature. It's not, I mean, it doesn't use YJIT, but it uses JIT, usual JIT, because as we can see here, like yeah, it's a real test, depend on some measures, active record, Rails bench, mail, and etc. And this is no JIT. It means like that by default Rails application doesn't use JIT. I mean, improved JIT. It uses I guess the earliest version of JIT, but not this that we talked about has been introduced in Rails in Ruby 3. Yeah, and I guess not MJT. I mean, now the main problem why it cannot be used, because in some cases it crashes our applications, it crashes our like business logic. I guess that was the main reason why Shopify team tried to achieve that by using some block versioning mechanisms, but I guess it's still experimental feature, because I just read some articles and checked that guys tried to apply YJIT, and in sometimes they just check that the application have been crashed. Yeah, because it's still experimental feature. I mean, now in Ruby 3.1 you can use it, but you have to pre-set up it. But by default, I guess it uses a default JIT. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, the earliest version which tries to just follow these principles. Like if we have a method and we call it many times, we will probably use it again many times. So we don't need to like interpret it one more time. We just can precompile it and use it. I guess this approach now is used in Rails 7 and Ruby 3.1 by default. I guess that's it probably.
But how do you use YJIT? How do you enable it? Should you compile Ruby with some parameters?
Yes, we have to compile Ruby with some parameters, and after that it will be possible. Yeah, I guess it will be used. Yeah, I mean, it will be really nice if someone will prepare a detailed presentation or meetup regarding UJT and JT and show some examples, maybe in Russian. I guess it will be much easier. But yeah, I guess for this we need a particular meetup, because there are so many techniques and there are so many mechanisms from background how they do that, and how we can compile Ruby, and in some situations when we expect that we use JIT, it's not used, and in other it's used, and yeah, it's really tough to like put all this stuff in one meetup, I guess.
Yeah, it's a really interesting subject, and I wonder what if we like try to run test suite of our project with YJIT enabled? Will it run faster or not?
The main problem, I guess, connected with iCache, because we cannot use iCache with JIT. Yeah, that's why after releasing Ruby 3, it's not possible. It wasn't possible to use it with Rails, because Rails uses iCache, I guess, and Ruby's improvement with iCache, it's a main problem why it cannot be used with JIT. Yeah, I mean in real applications, when they performed some measures in real applications, they just check that, okay, now we have 2 seconds before we have 1 second. It is not like an improvement, I guess. It only improvement in some benchmarks, but not in real business logic. That's why it was such an issue. even here, if you look at this benchmark driver results, on the left, we have RTL MJT. On the right, we have Ruby free JT. Even in benchmark, I don't see that it became in 3 times faster. It only 3 times faster on in some particular situations. Yeah, in some like cases where we just have some basic setup, we just perform some benchmarks, we just like run some typical dummy operations that can be cached, that can be precompiled by JT and not be interpreted one more time. Yeah, but when you use business logic, you have database queries, you have rendering HTML. Yeah, it becomes much more complicated to, yeah, manage these things. But we have, I just watched some really wonderful presentations from Shopify team, and it was a guy, and he described how they achieved that, and in details described lazy basic block versioning, how it works actually, what are benefits, what are cons, and why they put it inside interpreter, because yeah, this C Ruby code base is very complex, and the main goal was to put it inside interpreter, and yeah, to increase performance. Okay, do we have any other questions?
Is it the video that you sent the link to recently?
Yes. You can watch.
Cool.
Yeah, you can watch.
Yeah, I didn't yet, but I will. And thank you for your comprehensive answer to the question. Thanks.
All right. Do we have other questions? No, I guess. Okay. All right. Yeah, we can just communicate on that topic in our chat. Share some links with each other and describe or discuss it. Maybe just have a call. Yeah, I want to really be deep inside the YJIT topic as well. Yeah, but maybe it's a little bit complicated because it's relies on some knowledge of R structures. R structures, yeah, it's connected with C language. How do we store data? How we store our methods? How do we store our variables in memory? But actually, yeah, maybe if we can start deep inside that from a video that I shared from guy from Shopify, where he described in details how they used it in YJIT. Yeah, and we can just have a call and or chat about all these things. I guess I missed 2 things that have been introduced in Rails, because I just realized in some 1 hour before our meeting that they have been implemented. I will also share with you in our chat, and we can discuss them as well. Some new methods that have been added to Active Record. But I guess, yeah, main topic is again load async and how can we use it in such situations. I would really appreciate if you share with all of us your experience. How did you use it? Or is it possible to use it? And what have you seen? If it's makes some benefits, I guess, then it will be more close to put it in real applications in our code. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for attending this meeting. Yeah, it was really a little bit tough for me to speak in English, yeah, because it's some general technique topics, but we have to improve our language. We have to make maybe more meetups in English, because it's really cool and wonderful that now we have some developers from Poland and they could understand us and we can speak with them and discuss some technical topics. Yeah, thank you guys. Have a nice evening. Yeah, really wonderful. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.